Hey, story fans. It's the Writing Ref. I'm an author and a writing coach, and I don't hate, I just officiate your favorite books. On this channel, I typically take popular media, movies, TV shows, and games, and break down what not to do. But I've only ever done one book review, and I intended to do many more than that, and I'd like to get back to doing once a week, mainly to encourage myself to read more, because if you're an author and you're not reading in your genre, you're wrong. You should be reading 2 to 3 times as much as you write. So get good at reading and seeing how different authors handle your genre, or in my case, genres. So book reviews will work a little bit different. Instead of calling penalties on what not to do, we'll take a look at what authors have done that works. So with each book, I'll give you a full book review. But in addition, I'll read a passage from the book to show you something that the particular author is doing really well. And I'll try something fun by adding some AI art that I attempted on my own to go along with the scene. So, without further ado, let's get into our first book review, Standing Dead by Margaret Mizushima.
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name.
That's a lot of fish.
Standing Dead is the 8th book in a long-running mystery series following the exploits of Canine Unit Deputy Maddie Cobb, her loyal companion Robo, a German Shepherd, and the veterinarian Cole Walker. This is a police procedural mystery series that can be read out of order. Each book is like an episode of a mystery series like NCIS or CSI, or that kind of thing, but set in the beautiful Colorado Rockies. And recently, even moving to the Northwest, in the latest book to come out earlier this month, called Gathering Mist. So we have a 9-book series that works very well no matter the order you read them in, because the author does such a good job of catching you up on all of Maddie's past trauma or things that she's faced. Those kind of little side plots really add to the experience, I think, if you do read them in order. So now let's focus on Standing Dead. What did it have to offer to the series? And what is it about the writing of this particular mystery series that I love and that I want to harp upon as a good example for other writers? Standing Dead is really a missing persons case with some murders and attempted murders along the way. And its missing persons are right up the alley for a canine unit because of the ways that you can use the dog dynamic to track and find people. And Margaret is really good at writing how a canine unit procedurally tracks down people that are looking for, be it the bad guys or the people that are missing. And you really feel like you're following the letter of the law. And when they need to break rules or bend them, they don't just do them wantonly. There's often very good reasons built into the story for the characters to do that. So as you progress through this mystery, character decisions always make perfect sense. I'm never taken out of the moment by thinking they wouldn't really do this in real life. It's very realistic, grounded, and down to earth. And I think one of the things that's unique about Standing Dead, and therefore all of the books in the series, are how the animals, Robo in particular, of course, being the main one, but every animal you come across, and there are a lot of animals because there's a veterinarian involved, and it's because it's a rural area. The animals are characters, from horses to other dogs to even cats. The way that they're characterized, the way that their behaviors and mannerisms are integrated into the story is just fantastic. Even to the point where I'm with a veterinarian studying kitty litter, let's just say, a little bit more scientifically to make sure I'm understanding what might be wrong with a sick animal. Those procedures are very well described. And finally, the pacing is great. There's a clear first, second, and third act, and the third act, each act adds upon the tension. And I think that is the the subject matter that I want to concentrate on for other authors to learn from Margaret is how she uses setting in particular to build tension in her scenes. Now, the scene I'm going to read is the discovery of a body, and I want to go through the tension building steps and pay particular attention to how setting affects the way that tension climbs until the body is discovered. Now, to set this scene up, you have to know that the inciting incident is Maddie has gone looking for her missing mother and found a note with a clue that she should look for someone important to her amongst the standing dead. So the first part I'm going to read is a little bit before in a previous chapter where Margaret sets up the entire setting for the area for this scene. The road wound through the forest in a westward direction, gaining altitude slowly. Though they left the pavement and were now on dirt road, this particular route was well traveled by campers, horse trailers, and RVs that parked in the campground near the Shadow Ridge Corral, so it was well maintained. Soon, the healthy green color of the pine in their headlights turned to gray. The mountain beetle that had decimated parts of Colorado's forest had hit this area surrounding the campground especially hard. Gray-ground patches of dead lodgepole pine covered the mountainsides, leaving them vulnerable to fire. Having originated primarily in northern Colorado, the pests were now spreading into southern forests, leaving swaths of standing dead pine in their wake. It was estimated that over 3 million acres of pine had been killed. Standing dead. Her skin crawled as she remembered the note left on her door. As a certain YouTube channel would say, "That's the name of the book!" Now this is what I call setting the foundation. Margaret has chosen a very spooky location, with dead trees and lots of double entendre to the meaning standing dead, to already be getting the reader prepared for something spooky going on in these woods. And as we'll see, she continues to take this foundational setting and ramp it up until we have the climax of this first act. As they reached the north side of the corral closest to the road, Robo paused and worked the ground. He sneezed as he poked his nose into the winter-brown grass, but continued to sniff it thoroughly. She studied him, looking for signs that he was onto something. His ears pricked, and he advanced slowly, lifting one front foot and pausing as he sniffed. She could imagine those millions of scent cells in his nose and mucous membranes charging and firing as he cataloged each layer of scent. The earthly smell of the dirt, the dusty winter vegetation, the trail of rabbits or other wildlife. It was his job to ignore all that and search for human scent alone. He lowered his foot to the ground, inching forward a few steps. Finally, he moved westward to the edge of the trees, sweeping his head side to side as he walked, increasing his momentum as he locked onto the track. When he surged forward, Maddie's adrenaline started to rise. He'd found a scent. Maddie could tell that Robo was now certain of the scent he wanted to follow, and she kept up with him so she wouldn't hold him back. Brody fell in behind them. Brody's an extra deputy who's armed. They moved into the standing dead trees, and she slipped on her night vision goggles. Everything turned green and ghostly, but she was able to see the forest floor well enough to size up her footing. Deadfall was thick in this area, fallen branches and needles, threatening to trip or turn ankles. She could also see evidence that someone had been through here, broken twigs, disturbances in the dead pine needles, scruffs where shoes or boots had trod. These signs allayed any doubt that Robo was on a scent track made by humans. Though she hadn't doubted him at all, she'd learned to trust her partner, and he'd proven himself over and over. Confidence in the power of her dog's nose bubbled over, and she offered him enthusiastic support. "Good job, Robo. Let's find someone." Brown stuff crackled underfoot in the dead forest, proving her correct in what she'd expected. This footing would telegraph their approach to anyone waiting. She stared at Robo, watching for a change in his body language that might indicate an ambush up ahead. Nothing so far. Robo continued to wind through the trees in a generally westward direction for at least 10 minutes, keeping his nose to the ground. The scent must be fresh, because he didn't hesitate as he moved forward along a track that could easily have been traversed by a human. There was no backtracking, no climbing over a deadfall, no stopping and searching for missing scent. He continued his confident trek through a trajectory that led in a beeline from the campground corral. A breeze quickened from the west, chilling her cheeks below her goggles. Robo's head popped up, and he sniffed the air moving against his face. At that moment, Maddie recognized he'd switched from tracking the scent pattern on the ground to trailing it through the air. Her pulse quickened as the hackles on Robo's neck rose, making the hair on her own neck prickle. She grabbed the handle on his Kevlar vest and murmured, "Robo, wait," in a voice barely above a whisper. Turning to Brody, she held her finger to her lips and then pointed at Robo's back. In the goggle's green glow, she could see Brody nod his understanding. He held his rifle ahead of him at the ready. "Search, Robo," she murmured, and let him lead her slowly forward. Skeleton pines surrounded them as they edged along, one careful step at a time. Maddie flinched as if she sensed a projectile piercing her back, and she immediately put a damper on her imagination. She focused on Robo, trying to read him as they crept forward. When he hesitated, she raised her gaze to scan the forest. Trees with bare branches danced in and out of her vision as she swept the area ahead. Then she spotted it, something different about one of the trees. She pinned her eyes on the bulky shape while Robo eased forward. The silhouette assumed the form of a human. "Person," Maddie murmured to Brody, pointing at the form, and then to Robo. "Good job, buddy." Her senses as alert as they could possibly be, Maddie followed Robo until he stopped and sat about 5 feet away from the tree. Though the person had long hair and a bowed head, she could tell it was a man. By this time, she could also make out the rope that tied him into an upright position against the tree. The man looked as dead as the tree he was bound to the standing dead. Now, after you listen to this breakdown of the different steps that built tension in that scene, go back and listen to it again. In fact, if you've made it this far in the video, you might as well like and subscribe and share with all your friends who aspire to be authors, because I'm going to be doing a lot more book reviews that break down great author techniques like this one. So, first, we set a good foundation, but after that, Margaret continued to set the tone of the scene by the words she chose to describe the setting. Notice words like deadfall and skeleton pine. These all invoke, of course, the impending doom and death of the scene that we're about to go through. Now, this next step that she does here is tricky, because you can't do it every time, but you can keep a deep, unfiltered point of view for your character. Margaret brackets her point of view for Maddie with night vision goggles, which create this sense of claustrophobia added to the scene. Now, everything's green, so we're placed in Maddie's claustrophobia of the moment. If you can place the reader into the same setting with limitations on what they can see and reveal it a little bit at a time, you will increase the tension little by little. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, in order to build good tension through any scene, or keep emotional stakes of any scene, you've got to have motion through the setting. Robo's motion through this setting is fantastic. It's what sets a novel apart from watching a movie or a TV show or even playing a video game, in that the setting can be as big or as small as you need it to be. But if you move through it with all 5 senses, then that's what I call having good motion through the scene setting. Your setting is now a character that comes alive and interacts with your characters instead of the characters interacting with the setting now interacts on your characters. To learn even more tension building skills from Margaret Mizushima, go buy her books. Visit her website, margaretmizushima.com. You can find Standing Dead and the new one just released October 8th, Gathering Mist, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and several other bookstores. I'll put the links in the description. Until next time, I've been the Writing Ref, and that's been The Call.